Welcome back to Passions Podcast. Today with two special guest hosts, me, Officer Luis Lopez-Fitzgerald. I am the law, people. I am the law.
You look the part. You look fantastic.
And we have Eric with us here today. Welcome back to the show, Eric.
Listen, I am so happy to be part of the, be with the better part of Shuis right now, which is you.
Yeah, somebody's got to represent for Shuis right now. It's got to be me. Listen, the week we're recording this is the week of Halloween, which is why I'm in my Halloween costume. I will also be wearing this at the Passions Podcast Halloween party for all of our patrons over on Patreon who already all know about this. Obviously, by the time this episode comes out, it will be past Halloween.
I will have not ruined the surprise because I feel like I might be the only one who knows what you're doing right now.
You are. You are the only person who knows about this.
You surprised me. I didn't know you were wearing a costume today, so when I got on screen,
I wanted it to be a surprise. But yeah, I got my Luis wig.
The hair is fantastic.
I got my police uniform on.
Yes.
And yeah, we're gonna have a good time. Happy Halloween.
I'm excited for it. Yes, I'm excited for it.
So before we get into all of this, time to say a quick shout out to all the patrons over on Patreon. Thank you to Moonashe, Bree Lynn, Lisa, Sid, Sarana, Randall, Hannah, Camellia, Samantha, Jeanette, Eric, Fantasia, Sean S, Larissa, Maria, Greg Lopez Fitzgerald, my cousin, Lisa. I guess he would be like a brother because why would he have both of those names? Lisa, Jessica Jean, Laura, Karen, Uche, Justin, Paige, Casey, Garange, Tom Bergeron, Pablo, Daisy, Shane, Kelly, Taylor Harris Crane, and our latest patron, DJ. Thank you all so much for being patrons. Eric, did I say your name? Yeah, I did. There it is.
Yes, you did. Yes,
Eric. Okay.
The Leo in me heard my name, so I'm good. Okay. Which, by the way, DJ just got on and already active in the Discord. That's always exciting.
Yeah, and he was on the watch party the other night, and we had some good conversation. Again, I enjoy our community. You know, I feel like we're all there to have a good time. Yep. And so if you are itching to be a part of the Patreon, I remember actually DJ, shout out to DJ, by the way, because we're talking about him a lot, but DJ was on the YouTube channel, like leaving comments a lot, which I love and appreciate. And he finally was like, I think I'm going to become a patron. I was like, yeah, great. And I'm so glad he did, because now we could actually talk to each other, because I don't deal with the YouTube as much as I should. I don't keep up with it as much as I should. But yeah, so if you are itching to like be a part of the community and come and talk to us, and like, he was really excited to see Eric and Maria. Like, it's fun to kind of talk to the people that, you know, that you've seen on the podcast. So come and join us and have fun. One of us.
Yeah, one of us.
One of us. All right. So with that, on with the show. It is time for us to get started on this Passions Podcast. We watched episodes 741 through 745 this week. Yes?
That is correct.
Wonderful. I always love it when we watched all the same episodes.
Yeah. It's a pretty big deal.
So this week, there was a lot. Actually, there was several things that I really kind of like was enraged by this week. And pretty much all of them were in Theresa's storyline. So we're going to start there this week. I don't know if I have any Theresa music or like good music for this. What do you think would be good for this?
I don't know. I keep trying to find
trouble breathing. Why do I? You know what? Why does it say trouble? Oh, it says trouble brewing. My bad, y'all.
Oh, that is so much. Because I was like, Rebecca music? Like heavy breathing? That's right. Heavy breathing. Sorry.
No, you know what? I think
But that is
the perfect music for today.
Oh, there's a lot of trouble brewing. That is correct.
There's some trouble brewing for Theresa. So let's get it started. Ha! Let's get it started in here.
So I don't know what is going to upset you today, but I have a declarative statement for this section.
Mm-hmm.
If you haven't figured it out, not Pilar, pero Pilar is my favorite and my MVP for this week. I thought Eva Taramargo did such a fantastic job acting. You might not agree with Pilar the character, but Eva's acting was impeccable.
Beautiful.
She punched me in the gut so many times this week because her responses seem so genuine and seem so much like the way my mom would respond in these situations that I was obsessed with her performance this week.
Yeah, I don't really have an issue with anything Pilar has done or said this week. I agree. I think the performance was like a knockout. Truly. Yeah. That I was tearing up. And I was, of course, the performance, I'm already angry with Theresa, but like that performance from like her mother also makes me just like more angry at her. It's like, yes, what you're doing to your poor mom.
Like I can't. Those are the things that I could never do.
I could never do that to my mother ever. So I agree. I agree. I don't know if I guess I could get on board with Pilar being MVP this week. I could see that. I'm trying to think if there's anybody else who deserves it, and I don't know that anybody else deserves MVP this week.
I can give out some honorable mentions, but she's my MVP. Maybe
Ethan might be my honorable mention, but it's still, yeah. So let's get into it. We're gonna start with Theresa. And
go for it.
Everything that's going on here. I can't even call this like Theresa, Ethan, Gwen. Poor Gwen shows up, gives her like 3 lines, and that's it. You know, at one point I was like, oh, she really just popped up out of absolutely nowhere.
Yeah, she really did. It looked like because where they were seated in the courtroom, Ivy and Rebecca were seated there. She might as well have just gone, hey, I know you're all up to something. I mean, like, that's pretty much what she did.
That's exactly what happened. She just like popped up between the two of them.
Whack-a-mole.
Okay,
yeah.
Cool. So,
like a whack-a-mole. She just popped up and went back down.
So, all right. Everybody is at Theresa's sentencing hearing this at the beginning of these episodes. And by everybody, I mean not everybody, because Miguel and Luis aren't there yet. But I was like, maybe they just didn't know what was going on, which they didn't. Yeah. Because Theresa, I will remind you all, Theresa was just let out on bail last night. In fact, it has not been a full 24 hours since her bail hearing. She is now at a sentencing hearing. So, of course, people didn't realize that she was there for a sentencing hearing. But that's how the cookie has crumbled here. So,
listen, I gotta say, I haven't been on the podcast for just a little minute. It hasn't been that long.
I missed you. It's been a while.
Oh, thank you. I miss you all too. When I'm not on and I'm listening, I'm talking to you all in the car. I promise you, and in my office. But with that said, Passions totally did the reverse of what it usually does and sped up things that it normally never speeds up. Theresa's supposed to be on death row for about 15 years in Passion's time. She's been on it for like 15. Like it was just seconds. Like, how is this possible?
She was not even on death row. She's about to be on death row.
Yes.
She literally was out on bail.
The trial. There we go. I misspoke. Yes, the trial.
Nothing.
Yeah.
She was out on bail. So now we're sentencing her to death. Spoiler alert. So, everybody, we're at Theresa's sentencing at the courthouse. Davis, her high-powered crane attorney, talks to Alistair on the phone, who tells him that he will not rest. Alistair tells Davis he won't rest until Theresa is sentenced to the death chamber. Okay, so this is all Alistair's doing.
And because I haven't been here, can you just tell me, where is Woody Stumper?
What? They never called him. I don't know where Woody is. I wish Woody was here, but we don't know where Woody is. I have no answers. That was the first question we asked. It was like, why didn't they call Woody? But but also Ethan was the one who called the lawyer, and Ethan doesn't have any respect for Woody as a lawyer. So it does kind of make sense that he would call who he deems to be the best defense attorney or whatever,
Yeah.
even though Davis works for Alistair. So anyway, Alistair tells him, I won't rest until Theresa is sentenced to the death chamber. Meanwhile, everybody is trying to convince Theresa to ask to have her sentencing hearing postponed, pushed back. She refuses. She's like, "What? Nothing. What's going to change? Nothing's going to change. I've already confessed. I'm not going. I'd rather get it over with sooner rather than later." And she is just a little too fucking chipper for a bitch who is going down for murder. It's just crazy to me. It's crazy.
So a while back, you've been saying how frustrated you are with Theresa. I have not been frustrated with her yet. This is where she got me. I was very frustrated with her this week. I couldn't stand her. Her optimism just made me want to punch her. I mean, I'm like, come on, mamita. Like, this is silly. This is ridiculous.
What are we doing?
Yeah, what are we doing? And somebody asked her that, and I'll highlight it when we get there.
Yeah. So Alistair also calls Judge Harris. We don't really hear anything of this conversation. We just know that Alistair has called the judge, and we know what Alistair wants. So we know what's coming, basically. So then the judge comes in, the hearing actually commences. The DA goes up to like present their, I guess what you would call a case. They ask for the maximum punishment, citing the fact that she confessed to murder. And so they're like, yeah, like, give her the death penalty. That's what we're asking for. Then Davis gets up and he makes a plea for like leniency for Theresa, citing all of the horrible things that happened to her. He talks about her rape, her subsequent pregnancy, and how Julian had victimized her. So then we get all of these character witnesses. Pilar, Father Lonergan. I got a lot to say about Father Lonergan this week. I've got a lot to say about Father Lonergan this week. So Pilar gets on the stand, talks about how Theresa was such a good student in school. She always made good grades. She was such a good girl. When we were watching this on the watch party, I think it was Hannah wrote in the chat, was like, I don't believe for a second Theresa had good grades. She was never at school.
And she was daydreaming if she was. There's no way she was focused on that chalkboard. Yeah. No way.
Yeah, and then Father Lonergan gets up and talks about how she was so devout and always came to church and yada, yada, yada. Neglects to mention the fact that she probably didn't do this, but fine. Chief Bennett gets up on the stand and tells, damn, y'all. So this costume is a twofer, right? So I'm Luis without a tie, but if I put on my tie, which I have, but I don't have it right here with me, then I'm Sam. And damn, I could have done my little Sam impression, but it's okay. Sam gets up on the stand and tells the judge about how he's always known Theresa to be an honest young woman, more so than the other kids, and she just was never in trouble. Fine. All of these great character witnesses, right?
Yeah.
And then the defense gets up, makes another case for Theresa killing Julian, saying in her own way it was merely self-defense because he had been killing her, right, in his own way. The judge then says, well, I can only see one ruling to make with good conscience. And that is, he says, I hereby find you guilty of murder in the first degree, and I have no choice but to have you put to death. You heard all that and that. But of course, obviously, he wasn't even listening to any of that because he already knew what he had to do, honey. He was over there filing his nails, anything other than listening to the pleas of the people.
Yeah.
Playing Minesweeper on his compact laptop. You remember those?
Minesweeper.
Yeah.
I was just talking about Snake on a cell phone the other day.
Oh yeah, man. I used to love Snake. What a game. All right. So I hereby send you to be put to death. Miguel, this is when Miguel and Luis show up. Mama, I'm Luis now.
There you go. I saw it.
What's going on? And he finds out that Theresa is sentenced to death, and he's like, what about justice? This isn't justice. He starts yelling about justice in the courtroom. Ethan starts talking about this is a travesty of justice. I've never seen somebody be so clearly railroaded. The judge starts banging his gavel. He's like, quiet, order in my court. Otherwise, I'll have you held in contempt. And you know I'll do it. I'll send your sorry butt to jail. Talking to Ethan and Luis, actually, but mostly to Ethan. And I think Ivy like zooms in and tells Ethan to like chill because he can't help Theresa from jail. Fair enough. So what happens next? Because I need to.
Well, at some point, because they're going to say that can she be released out on bail, or like what is the situation here? At some point, we get some incredible Alistair Crane acting from the corner where nobody can see him, and he just puts his hand and gives a thumb down. To which the judge is like, no. Theresa Lopez-Fitzgerald Crane, which again, I think now they are going to start calling her that, and they're going to refer to her as that for the rest of the series until way later, has way too much money and way too much power and poses a possible flight risk. So we are not going to allow her to go out. So she will be jailed immediately because Theresa's been sentenced to death.
Yeah, and he says he has to go and consider what her execution date will be.
Yeah.
So while he's gone, we have some interactions with all the people in the courtroom. And the most important one is, in my opinion, first, Ivy and Rebecca are there. The entire time, you can basically see them in the background smiling.
They are gloating
from ear to ear. They are thrilled at how this is working out.
Yeah.
And Pilar, of course, is devastated. Father Lonigan is sitting there with Pilar, useless as ever. And at one point, Father Lonigan, Ethan comes over and says, I'm going to take this all the way to the Supreme Court if I have to. I will not let Theresa be put to death. And he fires Davis, even though he doesn't have the authority to fire Davis.
Yeah.
But he fires Davis. He tells Davis, you're fired, because he says to Davis, can't we do something to push this all back? Can't we do something to like do some appeals, whatever? And Davis is like, what's the point? Nothing's going to change. She confessed. It is what it is. And Ethan's like, well, then you're fired. And I'm taking on this case myself, which honestly, I would be more annoyed by, because Ethan has like such a huge conflict of interest in this case. But it's better for Theresa if Ethan takes this case on, since Davis is obviously working for Alistair, so I'll allow it. I'll allow it. So
it is. I struggled with Ethan in these episodes in like his morality versus his love for Theresa versus his ethics versus like it's so complex. And passion doesn't do complex very well. So
yeah. So Father Lonigan at one point, he's so disturbed by the fact that Theresa has been sentenced to death, right? Like he's like, oh my God, I didn't expect this. I thought maybe she would get a slap on the wrist for a murder.
Yeah.
You thought she would get a slap on the wrist for a murder? Why does anybody think she would get a slap? Why would anybody think she would get a slap on the wrist for a murder? Why? Because she's pregnant?
Well, also, not only the only person that believes this is Theresa, but she thinks she's going to get a slap on the wrist because she is a full-on Crane now. Like, for some reason, that she is not, and I put this in my notes, she's brown. In all intents and purposes, she is Mexican in this, or Latina in this series. They are not seeing you as an equal. Again, I know there's complexities with white actors playing these roles, or non-Latinas, Latinx people, but you are not a Crane. You are not white. So you don't get these privileges.
You are not a Crane. I don't know what makes her think just because she drunkenly married Julian that Alistair would protect her from retribution after killing his son. I don't get what goes on in this girl's fucking brain.
Yeah.
Okay. So
lovable lunatic.
Right now, it's just giving lunatic. Just giving lunatic. So anyway, but right now I'm gonna talk some shit about Father Lonigan because Father Lonigan has the nerve to say, dear, like to himself, dear God, Theresa, what have you done? What has she done? What have you done? You could fix this. You could save a life. That's what I'm saying. You could save a life. Father Lonigan, like, don't you have some kind of moral? I don't know. Wouldn't that be weighing on you? That's what, and that is what he says. Like, it's gonna weigh on me because Theresa. Well, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say you're right in this. Well, first of all, he starts off with his catchphrase, "Evil has returned to harmony." So that is his first thing. Then he does go into the thing because you made this motion. He does hold on to Pilar, like he embraces Pilar when all of this stuff is going on. But I wanted to ask because he says, I live with this knowledge and it weighs heavy on my soul. Mm-hmm. Like, he's like, you did this to me. But I'm like, it messes with my head because I'm like, you are her priest. You are her father, like the person that she goes to in confidence to tell things. How are you going to tell her, like, you did this to me? It's like,
yeah,
you need to help her through this.
It's like, one, it's your job.
Yeah.
Literally your calling, is it not?
And he says, as a human, he wants to tell. Like he's like grappling with what his faith and his duties to his church are telling him to do, and what he needs to do as a human being. And I was like, Latara, how do you feel about Father Lonigan at this exact moment?
I can't stand him. I'm so over it. I honestly, like I've said this before, at the very beginning of this podcast, when he showed up and Laura was like excited to see like the blind priest and he's gonna be doing stuff, I was like, girl, no. Brace yourself for the most useless and maddening character. And honestly, I didn't even remember this part of it. I didn't remember when I was talking about it. I was like, yeah, he knows everything and does nothing. Yeah. But that's always like it's his role. He knows everything and does absolutely nothing to like help or fix it. And I know we've had like fierce conversations and arguments about whether he has to or if he doesn't have to. That's neither here nor there at this point, because now he himself is saying, oh, this is weighing so heavily on me. Like he can choose for himself to make it right. Right?
I at this point, that's why I wrote that note, was yes to poke at you, but also to like, it's right there. He's saying it, like he's saying the thing. I also want to point out, when you were talking about Father Lonigan, I might have said this before on the podcast, but my devout Catholic mother never liked Father Lonigan in the series either. So just so you know,
he's not a very good priest.
He was very annoying.
Like everybody else in this town, he's terrible at his job. Like everybody else in this town, he's terrible at his job. He's
just Jessica. It's just Jessica. She's the only one good.
She's holding this town together. Hot glue and desperation, holding the town together. Okay.
Well, I wanted to. I don't know if you wanted to keep going on with Father Lonigan. Some things happen with Rebecca and Ivy as well, so we'll get there in just a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But because we're gonna go keep going. Cool. That's
like my next note. Going into Pilar and Ivy and Rebecca and all of that.
Yeah.
And then we'll come back to Father Lonigan because I have more thoughts.
Yes.
So, at this point, it's kind of chaos in the courtroom. Yeah. Father Lonigan, like I said, he's like trying to console Pilar. Luis and Miguel have shown up. They try to talk some sense into Theresa. Of course, she doesn't listen. She just keeps saying, Ethan's going to appeal. Don't worry. Again, a bitch who just got sentenced to death. And she's so goddamn chipper. It's crazy to me how, I mean, you know what? I almost envy her level of positivity in this moment. but I know that it's rooted in idiocy, so I don't envy it at all.
No, and that's the thing. Earlier I said I wanted to punch her. Probably not the best words. What I mean by that was like, you just want to shake her and be like, snap out of it. I mean, I do hear Cher in my head going, snap out of it. I mean, like, how do we like get any? There's no one can get any sense into Theresa right now. No one.
No.
Sometimes,
no.
I mean, at least she'd be. I know she's stubborn, and sometimes she's at least willing to listen. But this is old. Theresa is in her full powers. If Tabitha can never have full powers, Theresa is Theresa-ing really hard this week.
So hard. She's Theresa-ing so hard. So let's talk about Luis and Miguel. They try to talk her. She talk sense to her. She says, no, Ethan's gonna appeal. He already said he's going to appeal. It's fine. Whatever. Gwen pops up in the background.
Yeah.
Like a whack-a-mole behind Ivy and Rebecca.
Or like a Muppet.
Basically says, the two of you don't seem too upset. Basically kind of accusing them to have something to do with this.
She knows.
Doesn't have any, concrete thing to accuse them of, right?
Gwen knows they did something. They had a hand in this.
Yeah.
She doesn't know what it is, but she knows they had a hand in this.
Yeah. It's got her mother written all over it.
Oh,
it does.
It sure as hell does.
Luis tries to get Theresa to recant. She refuses. And he says, Theresa, who is it that you're willing to die for? Yes, who is it that you're willing to die for, Theresa? This is crazy.
Duh. Who do you think she's willing to die for? Come on.
Pilar finally then gets up and goes and says to Ivy and Rebecca, I don't know how you did it, but I know the two of you are responsible. They make a good point, which is if Theresa's covering for somebody, it certainly wouldn't be one of us. Right? It's logical. What they say is like, yeah, how could we have anything to do with this? Theresa fucking hates us, and you think she's covering for somebody. She's certainly ain't covering for us.
I will say this is rare that we get to talk about some of these things, but the direction of this sequence was incredible in that I was ridiculously enjoying the fact that they opened up the shot to show Pilar and how far away she was from Rebecca and Ivy, to show her hone in on them. And I tell you, I just wrote down, uh-oh. And I just was like, I'm getting chills right now. If looks could kill, it was just dead on, like, I know you did something.
Yeah.
And then this is just enraged me. I had to pause the episode and walk away because Ivy looks at Pilar, and do you know where I'm at?
Baby, I have the whole thing. I wrote, Ivy gives Pilar a fake ass speech, which is what she did. She gives Pilar this fake ass speech. She goes,
fake.
Oh, Pilar, in spite of our differences of late, I am sorry for your anguish. I can't imagine what it must be like to have a child you love put to death for murder. I can only hope that through prayer and faith in the church, you'll have the strength to get through this awful time. And she looks around Pilar. She goes, and Theresa, may God have mercy on your soul, Theresa. May God have mercy. Girl, bitch, I could have punched her in her fucking face. I could have punched her.
I wrote down, fuck, with a Q at the end. Fuck you, Ivy. That was just despicable. It was so horrible. And there was not a sense of sincerity in there whatsoever. Not any sense of real empathy for her so-called best friend for so many years. It turned my stomach. I was so angry.
And remember, I had told y'all.
I know you did.
And Ivy was never Pilar's best friend. Like, they were never really friends. Pilar was her servant.
I'm devastated by this rewatch.
But she was they were never equals. And Ivy never cared about her as much as Pilar cared about Ivy. Ever.
Yeah.
Ever.
This is it was so hard to watch, and if ever it was warranted, Eva, the actress, is a queen of a good slap as well. I wanted her to slap Ivy across the face.
Yeah.
I know she knows that she can't pin it on her or Rebecca right now, but that was so fake. It was so fake.
It was so fake. It was just, and I used the exact right word, despicable. It was despicable. I was disgusted, honestly, because even I don't have a single person that I hate enough to set up their child for murder and hope for them to get the death penalty. Like, I don't have a single person in my life that I hate so much that I would be like, yes, I will make sure your child is murdered for something they didn't do.
Yeah.
Let alone a person that I claim to ever love. Right? Yeah. Like, do I have friends that I've had a falling out with? Yes. People that I don't talk to anymore, people that I really am like, fuck you, I'm not dealing with you. Yeah. Would I ever do something like this? No, it's crazy. Like, I would be sick to my stomach. And even if I didn't do like any setting up or anything, even if I had somebody that I knew in my life and they lost a child, I just would be devastated for them.
Yeah.
I'm sick for them. I would be, I don't know, you just don't wish that on anybody. And for me, sorry, Karen, I know Ivy's your favorite girl, but
and I love her too. Yeah.
This was a step way too far. But what is Ivy doing? Ivy's fucking escalating. Yeah. Ivy's out of control and somebody needs to knock her down. She's out of control because I thought it was bad when she was poisoning Whitney, and that was horrific, right? Yeah. This is so far beyond just drugging somebody, just drugging somebody's child is horrible.
And within the context of everything being said about these characters in the context of a soap opera.
In the context, yeah. Yeah, in the context of it, this is so much worse than drugging Whitney. So yeah, she's escalating like psychopaths do. She's a psycho, and just Rebecca too. But we've always known Rebecca was unhinged.
Yeah, I feel like Rebecca is indoctrinating Ivy and taking off her little training wheels off. I mean, like, at this point, correct me if I'm wrong, and we could theorize this just very quickly. Pilar and Ivy were okay when we found out that Theresa was the one who had scanned those things and is blamed for sending them to the tabloids. They were having a lot of friction, but Ivy was still kind of like, Pilar, like, this doesn't have to mess with our friendship, and Pilar was still struggling with that as well, because you're calling my daughter names and saying all these things. It was as soon as Theresa became Mrs. Julian Crane that Ivy was like, I think she drew the line. I don't know if I can pinpoint it, but that's got to be it, right? I mean, like, when did she?
I tend to agree. Yeah. Because they did have a whole conversation about the tabloid stuff and all of that. And they were cool. They were okay after the tabloid stuff happened. Yeah. She found out, she thought it was Theresa. And like you said, there's been a lot of friction between them because Pilar keeps telling her, leave my daughter alone, right? Yeah. But yeah, when Theresa did the I'm gonna be Mrs. Julian Crane thing, I think that's where the lines were drawn. We didn't see a converation between Ivy and Pilar.
And we should have. We should have. Yeah. We should have, because that is so much like, and again, it's like y'all said, Lisa, you all discussed it. Pilar's still working for them. I don't think my mom would be able to work for this family after all of this. Now, I know she is the Mrs. Crane now, her daughter's Mrs. Crane now, but like, ain't no way I'm living in the same house as these people or working in the same house as these people.
It's ridiculous. And Pilar can be MVP this week, but watch her be in her maid outfit next week. And
I know. I know.
And I can't. I know. I just cannot. I simply cannot. I can't deal with it. That irritates me. Yeah. So
again, I think I'm talking more about the acting. The acting was impeccable.
The acting was really good, but no, I think Pilar on the whole, I liked what Pilar did this week, because
when we get to the hospital,
stuff in the hospital. I think I agree that Pilar, of all the characters this week, was making the most sense, and giving the best, and the actress is giving the best performance, obviously, and making the most impassioned speeches. I'm all on board. So let's go on. So after Ivy's despicable speech, Pilar goes to Father Lonigan and asks, Father, how could this happen? And then he says some shit about evil coming to harmony. Sir, you know the actual factual truth, at least as far as you know, as far as Theresa knows. You know exactly why Theresa's doing this, right? Like, that's the thing. He knows exactly why Theresa's doing this. He doesn't necessarily know the truth, but he knows why she's doing it, right? So, but he just is like, I don't know, evil. I don't know, man. Evil back in harmony.
Yeah.
And then he turns to Ethan and says, do you know anything about that, Ethan? And Ethan is confused by the question. He's like, I mean, I know all about evil, Father. I mean, I did fight the demons at my dad's house. I fought the demons at my dad's house. That line cracked me up.
I laughed too. And then I for a millisecond, I was like, Julian. Oh, yeah. I don't know why I did that. Come on, Eric. You know better. But I was like, when was evil at it's always at Julian's house.
Yeah, Julian is the evil in the house. Meanwhile, Theresa's like seeing this interaction, and she is terrified, worried that Father Lonigan is going to get Ethan to confess. And so she kind of pretends like, oh, I'm so dizzy, I'm so weak. And everybody kind of goes to her, and then they all like go get her water or something. Either way, she's left alone with Father Lonigan, and she begs him not to say anything to Ethan about this whole situation. He says, this has been weighing heavily on my soul, and now with you sentenced to death, how will I be able to sleep? And she just keeps begging him. I don't know. Again, he said, I thought I could live with it when I thought you would just get a slap on the wrist. Again, why did you think she would just get a slap on the wrist?
How would anyone think that? Yeah.
It's a murder of the most prominent man in town. Why would you think she's only going to get a slap on the wrist? It doesn't make sense. And even, how could you sleep at night even if she probably have to do a minimum of 20 years. Right, for murder.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know anything about the law. I need Karen for that. I don't know.
Oh, I love that. Woo! Making good use of that soundboard, that's for sure.
But it does seem like she would get more than a slap on the wrist for a murder she committed and confessed to.
Yeah.
So she just begs him not to say anything. You still you cracking up at the music?
Yes, it got me. Well, then I'm also thinking about something that Tabitha says later, and you know what I'm going to talk about later.
What you're talking about. I can't wait till we get there. I'm going to have to get my tie for it.
You have to. Okay,
so at this point, we don't know. Obviously, Father Lonigan's not going to say anything. Okay, because he's useless. Davis then calls Alistair, tells him, or they talk on the phone. I don't know who called who. Alistair tells him he has one more surprise in store for Theresa. At this point, Chad and Whitney show up, and we're going to talk about Chad and Whitney separately because luckily this week, we get a lot of Chad and Whitney stuff, and it's really
and it's good
on them. It's centered on them, and I'm glad to see it. So it's annoying. Very annoying, but it's nice to at least see their story starting to progress some. And not just being side characters for Ethan and Theresa's whole thing. They're little black sidekicks. Mm-hmm. So the judge comes back with the execution date, and he has decided to postpone it due to her baby. Obviously, you can't. It's got to be illegal to execute a pregnant woman. It has to be. I don't think they would ever. I don't know. Maybe not. I don't know. What do I know? Nothing about the law. So even though
just that you are the law.
I am the law. Latara knows nothing but Luis. He is the law. I forgot I was in this costume. So funny. Okay, so he comes back. He says the execution date has been postponed due to the baby. Everybody is like, yay. And then he says, but as soon as she gives birth, she will be put to death by lethal injection. Like, the day she gives birth, she's also going to be murdered by the state.
That just doesn't even sound anywhere near plausible.
Yeah, the court descends into chaos again. Ethan demands that the judge recuse himself.
Yeah.
Luis, I'm in there yelling about justice. Ethan's yelling about justice, and this actually we did this earlier, but this is when it actually happens.
Yes.
Ivy comes in and tells Ethan not to.
Ivy, she's like, you're jeopardizing your career. That doesn't help anybody or anything. Yeah.
Yeah. Then Luis, because this is when, at this point, Theresa seems to understand more that she's in big trouble. Like, she finally, like I said, she's been chipper the whole time. She's been upbeat. Don't worry, it's fine. I'm a crane. It's gonna be the crane take care of their own. La da da. But at this moment, she starts to panic. She's like, "Oh my god!" And Luis goes to her, and it seems like he finally gets through to her. He's like, "Do you see what you're doing to your family? Look what you're doing to us and to your mother." And she's like, "All right, I'll tell you." So it seems like she's gonna tell the truth.
Yeah.
But in order to keep Theresa quiet, Ivy and Rebecca stroll on over and push her to tell the truth, right? Rebecca's like, yeah, Theresa, tell everyone who really killed Julian, that person, so that they can die a grisly, horrible death. And of course, Theresa gets one of her little fantasies where she sees Ethan being injected with poison.
Two things about this. One, if Rebecca's on your side, something's wrong.
She don't think so good.
The second thing is, in her fantasy, they inject Ethan with a bag that is called poison.
Mm-hmm. The bag is poison. Yeah, the bag is poison.
and Rebecca's right there. Never trust a girl with a big smile and a whatever the lyrics.
Big smile.
Yes, that's Rebecca. The song's telling you.
It's poison. Yeah, okay, falsetto. Okay.
That was one of my brother's favorite songs. So.
I remember you telling me that. I love that.
So I thought about that too when I saw the poison bag. I was like, but like so cliche with like the little skulls and the like cross, like it was.
Yeah, I mean, it's Theresa's fantasy.
It's her fantasy.
It's Theresa's idea of what it is and everything. And Theresa's so whacked out in her mind, right? Like she doesn't know anything. She's so naive. She thinks that's how it works. They have a bag of poison and they inject you with it. And in a way that she's not entirely wrong, right? Yeah. Like, it is poison.
Yeah.
she in her brain, she doesn't know what the names of the shit is. She just knows it's poison. So that's what she put into her little fantasy. So of course, this stops her from admitting anything or saying, you know, who she believes did the crime or recanting in any way. Yeah. And the thing is, she could just recant and be like, I don't actually know who did it. It was the hormones. Like, at this point, girl, let the misogyny get you off. Because like, if you can make misogyny work for you, make it work for you at this point, because they spent a good amount of time. Luis and Sam spent so much time trying to get her to say, "Oh, I'm just saying this because of my pregnancy hormones. I'm crazy." She should just do that at this point, in my opinion. But no. She is sufficiently silenced by this fantasy of Ethan being put to death. She says, I'm not changing my story, and if I did, no one would believe me if I did anyway. Exactly. And so this is actually when Ethan fires Davis, because Davis is like, there's no point in postponing this whole thing. Like, it is what it is. Then Theresa, it seems, is going into labor, which makes sense. I mean, she's under an enormous amount of stress at this point. She goes into labor. The bailiff is like, she's coming with me. She has to go right to prison right now. Orders of the judge. And Sam's like, she needs to go to the hospital. And he's like, no, well, she can get medical care at the state prison. And Sam's like, that's over an hour away. She needs to go somewhere local. And so the bailiff finally is like, well, I guess it's fine, but I have to come with her. Guy, nobody said you couldn't.
Yeah.
Nobody said you couldn't. We expect you to come with her. It's part of your job.
Yeah.
I know everybody in this town's bad at their jobs, but come on, man. And so they take Theresa to the hospital.
Alistair's there. There's two things. Alistair's there, and he says he's going to buy the baby a black christening gown, basically. Rebecca gets this heinous hasta la vista tacosita line. And then Ivy gets even worse, bye-bye, slut.
I actually think... Here's
was
what
it,
happened.
Rebecca?
Rebecca says, bye-bye, slut. And then Ivy... Because I wrote that down exactly.
Okay.
Rebecca says, bye-bye, slut. And then Ivy says, within a week, Theresa will be joining Julian in hell. And then they smile and roll off together.
Yeah.
So it was something.
Yeah.
It was very dramatic. Everybody rushes over to the hospital. Eve obviously is there to examine Theresa. She examines Theresa. It turns out that Theresa is just having Braxton Hicks false labor, basically. Now, it should be noted that before we find out all of that, Ethan asks Eve if he can use her office to do some research because he wants to work on figuring out an appeal for Theresa. There's no time to waste. So he's not there when they find out that it's all false labor or whatever, right? So we're going to stick with what's going on with Theresa and Luis and the family, and then we'll talk about Ethan. So it's a false alarm, and then her family goes in to see her, and she's still saying that she's a crane and they won't lose one of their own. Again, this girl is out of her. She's just not all the way there. And she keeps saying she's a crane. They're not going to lose one of their own. What were you going to say?
I'm happy that you brought this up again because I thought about it earlier. Now this is where I can bring it up again. This again is where the writers will give me some stuff that I'm like, man, I love this. This is great. And then they do stupid shit like this where they forget a central part of the storyline. If you just said, if you just show us a flashback of her talking to Devil Julian, which is Zombie Charity, then we'd understand that Theresa thinks that there's a plan in motion, there's something happening. They're not talking about it anymore. They have not even brought it up in weeks.
Interesting.
That to me would at least be well, I signed this thing. They said I'm going to be with Ethan. What has changed? Nothing has changed. So at least that would motivate Theresa in thinking everything is going to be okay because I pledged my thing with the Devil Julian a long time ago. You make
a good point. They have just written that off entirely.
No, they have not. Yeah, they're not a flashback or anything. And also Zombie Charity is all over the place too. So she's not, she could really care less. She really could care less.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because right now it just doesn't make any sense at all why Theresa's acting like this.
I mean, it is the optimism is just outrageous. It's just too much.
It's outrageous. She's like, the cranes won't lose one of their own. What are you talking about? They lose. The cranes are dropping like flies. Are you kidding? Yeah. First Catherine, then Sheridan, then Julian. You're the next one in line, sister. Yeah, but this is what's happening to the cranes. They're dropping like flies. What are you talking about? The cranes won't lose one of their own. They've been losing. They can't keep up with them.
They've been trying to kill Sheridan since the start of the show.
And now, as far as they know, they have succeeded.
Yeah.
So Luis says to her, "You just don't understand, do you? You used Alistair's personal crane lawyer, and you still got the death penalty." And Pilar says, "Yeah, the cranes will do nothing to protect you." Thank you, Pilar. Thank you. Then Luis says, I don't know why, but I have a feeling that someone or something is out to destroy your life. And then he and Miguel decide to like leave and go to the police station, I assume to like try and do some like police work, investigative work, trying to figure out what they can do to help Theresa on the legal side, I guess. And because Luis says he has a hunch, and so he kind of is going to go and explore that, I guess. And he says he has a hunch as to who would want to destroy her life. Obviously, we know who that is. It's Ivy, not Pilar, Ivy, Rebecca. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm having such a hard time talking today because I have a cold. So I feel like I'm struggling to speak.
You've been doing great.
Oh, goodness gracious. Okay. So at this point, Luis, Miguel leave. Pilar is left alone with Theresa. She tries to reason with Theresa, but there's no reasoning with Theresa.
And this is where I wrote Pilar MVP here. I mean, beyond the courtroom stuff, it's here when she's just like, first of all, one thing, so I got chills. When I get chills, it means it's correct. That's the director in me. But when she's just like, I blame myself. Yeah. And she says it with such sincerity. Like her acting is like, she really looks at her like, I fucked up as a mom. Yeah. Like I taught you about faith and fate. But I did not talk to you about reality, and like I messed up here, and I'll give her. I mean, I'm gonna let her blame herself a little bit, but like that is just, to me, it's just like, I cannot tell you how many times I've heard something like this, like my mom being like, I messed up here. And it's like, no, I messed up. You didn't do that. I did this, or somebody did this. You didn't do anything to make that happen. I can hear that. And I was just like, wow, it was such good acting.
Yeah, it's tough. I imagine, I'm not a parent myself.
Yeah,
but I imagine that it is tough for a parent to see their child making bad decisions.
Yeah.
And there's nothing they can do about it. And the only thing they can really do is kind of think back on, where did I go? What did I do? What was my part in this? Which I do think is an important thing for parents to consider. Mm-hmm. What was my part? I'm not saying it's your fault, but what was my part? Yeah. Right? Because I think there can oftentimes be, leading up to, before like the really bad, really crazy, horrible things happen.
Yeah.
There can be a lot of blame placed on, like, let's just say Theresa for instance, on the child.
Yeah.
For like, oh, you're doing this thing and it's not quite what you should be doing. There can, and it's, until it's catastrophic, a lot of parents don't look back on like, wait, what was my part in this?
Yeah.
And then it's catastrophic and they go, oh my God, what was my part in this? And I think that can be so useful earlier on, before you get to the catastrophic events, right? Yeah. Like, to really be cognizant of like, how am I contributing to my child's bad behavior? How am I contributing? And in what way am I contributing? I'm not saying that I'm not the person sitting here to like blame parents for their kids' decisions.
No, me, yeah.
Like, absolutely not. But but there's definitely, it makes sense for them to go, wait, I raised you. So clearly somewhere in the years before this catastrophic event happened, somewhere I took a wrong turn that led you here. I think it's understandable. I'm not saying it's necessarily, obviously, it's not Pilar's fault. It's not. I make jokes about it being Pilar's fault.
Yeah.
But it's not Pilar's fault at all.
Exactly.
But I have like the whole speech that she said. Oh,
go for it.
And it's because it was really like, I felt for Pilar and I understood where she was coming from. So first, she begs Theresa to tell the truth. She says, if not for yourself, then do it for your mother. Do it for me. Listen, that would have got me. Yep. I wouldn't have been able to. I mean, obviously, I wouldn't even be in this situation. But if I was in this situation, that right there, my mama being like, if you're not going to do it for yourself, do it for me. Because my mama never asked me to do anything for her.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Same here.
And Pilar is extremely selfless. I will say that about her. Mm-hmm. Like, she is very selfless. To a fault, honestly.
Yeah, it is. It is a detriment to her. And
then Theresa says to her, why can't you just trust that I know what I'm doing? Bitch, look at you. Obviously, you do not know what you're doing.
You're on death. Like you are going to die.
You're on death row. What do you mean? You know what you're doing. You clearly fucked it up. Whatever it was, you fucked it up. And so then Pilar gives this beautiful speech about how Theresa has lived in a fantasy world her whole life. And she says, you've never been able to understand that your actions have serious consequences. And that's where I've let you down because I didn't insist on you learning. I just don't know. I thought that maybe somehow you would outgrow your dreams and start living in the real world. Yeah, I get where Pilar was coming from this. Like, she doesn't want to crush her kids' dreams. But I also... I've been saying since the beginning of the show, this lady doesn't have control over her kids.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like the fact that at the very beginning, Pilar told Theresa, like, no, you can't work at the Crane Mansion. And then Theresa just was like, fuck you, I'm going to do it regardless. Like that alone told me everything I really needed to know about what these two women's relationship to each other is. Right?
Yeah.
Like Pilar doesn't have any control over her kids.
Yeah.
And so
they respect her. They just are still gonna do what they're gonna do. Respect her to her face, I guess.
Yeah, I think because to me, respecting your parents means I'm not saying that you got to do everything your parent says, especially once you get grown, you know, but
respect within.
But respecting, if Theresa respected Pilar, she would not have started working at the Crane Mansion. She does not respect Pilar. She doesn't respect Pilar. If she respected Pilar, she would listen to Pilar's advice. Theresa doesn't respect anybody. If I'm being honest, I don't think she respects anybody because she never ever takes what other people have to say into consideration. She's selfish.
Yeah. She's
selfish and she thinks she's like the special chosen one for some reason. She does. And I'm going in on Theresa a little bit. But anyway, she doesn't respect Pilar. It's very obvious she's never respected Pilar. So after Pilar says this to her, saying, you know, I thought that you would outgrow it and this is my fault. Theresa tells her, Mama, this isn't your fault. I didn't want to give up on my dreams. And if you think about it, I didn't have to. Ethan fell in love with me. He asked me to marry him, Mama. Yeah, I know it hasn't worked out yet, but it will, Mama. Someday it will. What the hell is going on here? Theresa insists that Ethan will find a way to save her because he will find a way to save me because he loves me. This burned Pilar up. And me, I was like, get her, Pilar. Yes,
do it.
So Pilar then says, what is
wrong with you? It was so good. The delivery was so good. Yeah. When you just summarize that whole thing, my notes just said, Pilar says, better you live your life as a dumbass, I guess. I don't know what to do now. She said that beforehand. Then that's how I summarized it for my notes. Then what is wrong with you? I mean, it was so not like a Pilar delivery. Like it was just like, I'm done playing mama and I'm done playing saintly. Like, are you stupid? Yep. What are you doing? What are you saying?
She says, did you not hear the judge? Once that baby is born, you will be put to death. And there is nothing Ethan or anyone else can do to stop that. That is your reality. And it's time you face up to it. Yes, this is the reality, sweetheart. Yeah. You are on death row. Once you have your baby, they're going to kill you. That's the reality. You got to face up to it. You can't keep living in la la land.
Yeah.
But Theresa very passionately replies, Mama, if reality means giving up on my dreams, then I don't want to live in the real world anyway. Okay. All right. They need to, honestly, they need to have do an appeal. Like when Ethan appeals, it really should be based on insanity. It really should be. They need to lock her up in Norma's place because, you know, Norma has escaped the psych ward. They need to put Theresa in there. She needs to stay in the psych ward. She should have been there from the time she threw herself in the ocean.
Yeah.
But nobody cares about this girl's mental health. And again, that is a failure of Pilar.
Yeah.
That part is a failure of Pilar. Why, when your daughter threw herself into the fucking ocean, you didn't insist that she go have a stay at the mental institution?
Or go talk to somebody.
Why, when she threw herself into the ocean to kill herself, you guilted her about it like, well, you know it's a mortal sin, right? Instead of asking her, like, baby, are
you okay? Yeah, what's happening in life right now?
Dig a little fucking deeper. That was a failure of Pilar. And this is how we got here. It's like all of those things leading up to this point. So now, again, going back to the Pilar being like, where did I go wrong? It's like, yes, she did, though. She did go wrong. Yeah.
I won't give the writers any credit for this, but there is a stigma with Latinos and mental health, and so like they happen to stumble upon this, but and especially back in the early 2000s, I mean, nobody goes to see a therapist. Don't do that.
That's fair enough. And it's the same in the Black community. It's fair enough. It's just that it's fair enough.
You would think somebody would
it's fair enough. You know what?
I'm not giving the writers that credit. I'm just saying they happened to stumble upon it.
They did happen to stumble upon it, and I'm not gonna get into the weeds or the thick of it, but that is fair enough that they just would sweep it under the rug and not fucking talk about it anymore. And yeah. Oh God,
it sucks.
But again, but you know what? Again, that's a failing on Pilar. Yeah. At the end of the day, you didn't get your child the help she needed. This girl needed some serious help for years. Yeah. Theresa's needed some serious help for years. So moving on.
Also, fuck Martin Lopez-Fitzgerald.
Always.
I know that's a random fuck. But I think I'm like, we've got to put a lot of blame on Pilar, but we know what we know.
The thing is, I listened to this lady talking one time about how, I think it was like a TikTok or something, talking about how kids hate their mother who stayed and was there for them and long for the father who left them.
Yeah.
Right. And I feel like in the same way, in the same vein, I talk so much shit about Pilar, but Pilar was there at least.
Yeah.
Right. So
she shipped off one kid, but she was there for the other three.
She was there at least. At least she was there at least. So let's talk about Ethan for a little bit. Yeah. So Ethan has gone off to do some research in Eve's office, trying to find a way to help Theresa. Ivy and Rebecca obviously do not want him to help Theresa in any way, so they follow and they try to dissuade him from helping her, saying that he's wasting his time. He needs to look at the facts of the case. I mean, she confessed after all. And they say if Theresa confessed, you need to consider the thought that she might actually be guilty of the murder. And he says, well, yeah, I'm starting to consider the possibility that Theresa might be guilty, but I still don't believe that Theresa is capable of killing anyone. So then he gets the news that Theresa is okay and that it was a false labor. So he goes back to go and check on her. Yeah. Ivy tries to stop him and he's like, no, I'm going. I'm going to go check on Theresa.
I will give Gwen is not in here anymore, right? She's gone. Is. Oh, okay.
You didn't even realize. You didn't even notice. She's just
they put her in regular Gwen mode. Two things that she did that we didn't talk about in the courtroom. She does tell Ethan, "Hey, I'm here for you, and I'm here for Theresa," which is, it seems sincere. It just was odd to hear, but I'm like, I think she's. Yeah, I know. For those of you not watching, there was a facial expression that was made. So, man, it was good. I should have screenshot it.
It's just...
Yes.
When it's like, yeah, she's there for Ethan. I don't know why she has to add I'm there for you and Theresa. No, you're not.
Yeah, what are you going to do for Theresa? I don't know what you're going to do for Theresa. Yes. And with that said, I will say, there wasn't a single aside or a single Rebecca Gwen moment where we usually get these things of like, how are you going to let him go take care of Theresa. She seems, I mean, based off of what they're writing, she seems secure right now. I mean, like, she's just like, go do what you got to go do to take care of Theresa. I think she also recognizes
Theresa's gonna die. Teresa's to her.
Exactly. I think she recognizes how outlandish this all is, and is like, you probably are Teresa's like only hope. So she doesn't
want Theresa to survive. Well, you know what? Let me take that back. I don't know if she wants Theresa to survive, but I will say, in her, you know what? I'm not gonna take it back,
okay.
Because in Eve's office, at one point, when they're trying to convince Ethan that Theresa did it, Gwen chimes in. Is like, yeah, you need to come to the conclusion that she did it. I mean, nobody's saying that there's any love lost between anybody and Julian, but she confessed to the murder. There's a mountain of evidence against her. Gwen is of the mind that Theresa did it. Gwen tries to convince him not to not help her, but just tries to convince him like she did it and it is what it is. And like, I think she is at the point where like she feels like they're back together. Yeah. And if Theresa dies, then that's good for her because she doesn't have to worry about her anymore, right? Yeah. So I think at this point she definitely is secure because she thinks, well, Teresa's gonna die. I don't have any reason to worry about Theresa.
Yeah. She's like, you can go help her. I mean, she did. She seemed fine with everything. No.
Teresa's gonna die. She's no threat to her relationship at this point, really, in Gwen's mind. So Ethan goes off to talk with Theresa, but before he does, he's standing outside of her like little room alcove, and he overhears the conversation between Theresa and Pilar, and he hears that Teresa's like putting all of her faith in him, and he's just like, oh my God, I don't know, what am I gonna do? Like, there's no time, because Eve tells him that Theresa is ready to give birth. Like, it was just false labor now, but she will be giving birth within the next 2 days. That is what Eve says. And so he's like, that's not enough time for an appeal. Yeah. That's not enough time for an appeal. And so he starts to think, like, how can I buy some time for Theresa? And he decides he's going to help her escape. Fine. It's as good a plan as anybody else's.
I'm remembering where this is going, but I was shocked that we went here so fast. Again, we keep going so fast now.
So fast. Yeah. He decides, I'm going to help Theresa escape. That's the only way out of this, basically. And so he goes to like a supply room, and he's trying to get stuff from the supply room. It's like he's stealing scrubs or something. And Chad finds him there. And he starts talking to Ethan, and he realizes immediately what's going on, right? He's like, what are you doing? Trying to help Theresa escape? Why are you taking scrubs? What are you trying to do? Help Theresa escape the hospital? Yeah. And of course, Ethan's like, shut up. No, that's not what's happening. I'm just, he has no answer, right? Because why are you stealing scrubs? Yeah. And Chad tells him, look, man, there's a right way to do things and a wrong way to do things. He's like, this is the wrong way, and you're going to lose everything if you do this. I can't stand by and watch you lose your whole like livelihood. You're going to lose your license. You're going to go to jail. Like, you're going to lose it all. And Ethan says, listen, this is Theresa we're talking about. The woman that I was going to marry, the woman I still love. I can't just sit back and watch them execute her. And you would do the same if it was Whitney. And Chad, this quiets Chad, because I think Chad is, I think Chad would do the same thing for Whitney. Yeah. You know what I mean? I think he would do something just as rash as this. Maybe not this exact thing, maybe not this exact scenario, but I think that he loves Whitney enough that he would definitely break the law, right? Yeah. And so Ethan makes him promise not to say anything, basically. He doesn't promise it, but he's not going to say anything. Yeah. He tells him don't say anything to anybody, not even Whitney. So then Ethan goes and talks with Theresa while Pilar's still in there for the moment, right? So obviously Pilar would never go along with this. No. So he tells her there's no time for an appeal. And he says, but there is one more option. You could recant and tell the police who the real killer is. She refuses. Now, this was an interesting conversation because she thinks that he's telling her to tell on him. But why would he just say that, right?
That's a major plot hole. Yeah, it's so dumb. It's so dumb.
Like this, to me, this story only really works if Ethan is off somewhere, like for work or something, like he's not around.
Yeah.
But because
he's there letting you die.
Yeah. How could you just let him? I don't know.
Yeah, it's a major plot hole.
So anyway, she thinks that he's telling her, she's like, no, I can't let you. And she's about to say it. And he says like something else. And so it kind of fizzles that, right? But then they get left alone and Ethan tells Theresa that he's going to help her escape.
Yeah.
And it's the only way. We have to get out of here. You have to trust me. We have to go. And the next time we see them, they're in the car racing away from Harmony.
We get
a couple of idiot Bonnie and Clydes. Idiots. These two. Idiots.
That's where we ended.
Yeah.
Idiot.
And how does Ethan not realize that Theresa, like, how does he not realize something is really up and that he is the one she's trying to protect? I guess because he knows he didn't do anything.
Yeah.
So it's like, why would she be trying to protect him? But I don't know. It just drives me crazy. It just drives me crazy because, yeah, girl, you're looking at a man. What do you love about a man who would let you go down for murder?
Yeah. If I were Ethan, I've already been like, Luis, did you kill Julian? Pilar, did you kill Julian? Whitney, did you kill Julian? If those three didn't do it, who is Theresa protecting? And even then, he should know full well how obsessed Theresa is with him.
Honey, whatever. So they're on the run, these two, Bonnie and Clyde. So, all right. So now let's move on to Chad and Whitney and what's going on with these two. I am enjoying the fact that they are starting to get their own thing. We are moving into a portion of their story that I don't love, which is the whole Simone thing. So we're gonna talk more about that. Let's get into it. I don't have any special music for them, but maybe I should come up with something. And maybe that song that Whitney sang at early on. I don't remember it, but whatever. Yeah. All right. So Chad and Whitney. A lot of these events happen before Theresa gets sentenced. Okay. So we pick up this week and Eve is yelling at TC, who is pummeling Chad, right? He's violently attacking Chad. And Eve, in order to get him to stop, she finally yells, I know for a fact that Chad did not drug Whitney. TC does not immediately stop attacking. He's like, what do you mean? As he keeps punching. And
I can punch and hear you at the same time.
Yeah. And so she starts to cry and he finally does stop. And she tells him, once I tell you this, you have to promise not to stop loving me. And I've been so afraid to tell you the truth. And he kind of assures her, like, honey, of course I'll always love you. What's wrong? What is it? She tells him that a patient of hers drugged Whitney. And the patient drugged Whitney because he was mad, or they were mad at her because she wouldn't refill their prescriptions. And TC rightly says, and I don't always agree with TC, but I did this time. TC says, what? Why didn't you report him? Why isn't he in jail? He sounds like a dangerous criminal. This lady says, well, I couldn't because he's my patient and it would violate our doctor-patient privilege. What? Huh?
I don't know.
That I do know. No, I do know.
Yeah.
I know. Like, yeah, sure, the priest stuff that we've argued about, there was some gray area. There was some confusion there. There is absolutely no confusion here.
Yeah, like
if somebody tells you, hey, I committed a crime against your child, you are well within your rights to report that crime.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to lose your license. You're not going to, but that's what she says. Like, I could lose my license. No, you couldn't. No, you couldn't. There's no way. You probably could lose your license for letting some maniac stay out on the streets and not reporting that there's a maniac drugging people.
Yeah.
In Harmony. You could maybe lose your license for that. Aren't you supposed to, quote, do no harm? Isn't that like part of your Hippocratic oath? But you would let this maniac be free on the streets to like drug other people's innocent children?
Yeah.
It's just nutty to me. TC gets pissed at this, understandably so. I mean, like, I would be mad as hell. And frankly, I wouldn't be taking no for an answer. Who is it?
Yeah. And then when TC jumped to the conclusion, he was like, "Is that the same guy that hit Simone with a car?"
Oh, did he say that?
No, I'm just joking, but wouldn't that be funny?
I was like, oh, did we solve the crime? Okay. No,
because they don't care about Simone, so they're like, oh.
Case closed.
Yeah.
Getting into my Sam outfit now.
Good.
I look, without the tie, I'm Luis, but with the tie, ta-da, now I'm the chief police.
You're already glistening now. Like, you already have all the body sweat and everything.
Now look at me. Now I'm Sam. Now I'm the chief of police.
Wow, that's how you get promoted in Harmony.
You just get a clip-on tie. Okay, so, me, Sam, I never solved that case. My best friend's daughter got hit by a car, and I didn't care to solve that case at all. It's a bigger fish to fry in Harmony.
That was funny.
I was too busy kissing Ivy. So anyway, TC then. So anyway, I could spend more time on how ridiculous it is that what's this lady Eve? That Eve is saying that she can't say who the perpetrator is, but I'm not going to because I'm tired and I'm sick. So, so you know what? I wish Eve was here because
you want a sedative or something to quiet your nerves.
Yes, I do. I wish she was here to drug me up right now. Honestly, I do not feel good.
You know. If we ever had time to create a montage, I would love all the times you've used that sound effect.
That would be
because it makes me laugh every time.
It's a great sound.
It's never not funny.
Okay, so TC, then we're gonna move on past that whole revelation, right? So now TC feels bad for the way he's been treating Chad. Of course, course you should feel bad. So TC apologized to Chad. He says, you know, I'm sorry for how I've been treating you. He tries to shake his hand. Chad is like, psych, nope.
Yeah.
Not too slow. No, he doesn't say that. But Chad refuses to shake his hand, saying, nah, man, it's not going to be that easy.
I loved his performance here.
Yeah. I honestly, Chad is the most level-headed, reasonable person in town.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because instead of saying like, no, it's not going to be that easy, and then proceeding to, you know, give him a piece of his mind, he didn't do that.
No.
He said, you know, it's not going to be that easy. I want to promise from you that you won't treat me like this again when something goes bad or something is wrong, that you will not just assume that it had something to do with me.
Yeah.
And he talks about the way they've treated him from day one in town, and how they've treated him with suspicion and outright derision, honestly. And
after I saved Whitney's life, after I saved Dr. Russell's life.
He says, all I did for you, and it wasn't enough. I took a bullet for your wife. I almost died saving Whitney, but you still it was still so easy for you to believe that I was a bad guy. And so they say, yeah, we were wrong. We misjudged you. And he's like, well, I'll let it slide as long as you promise that the next time something goes bad in Harmony, that you won't just jump to conclusions and consider that you will consider all the things that I've done, for your family. TC agrees and they hug, embrace. I was like, okay, go ahead.
And one more thing.
Mm-hmm.
You got the one more thing?
Oh. Listen, I'm struggling today.
I was excited about this. Yeah.
Yes. And so
part of the contract.
He asked for one more thing. He asked, can I want to be able to go out with Whitney? And they both agree, Eve, nicely. I liked what Eve did here because TC was like, yeah, sure.
I was impressed. First of all, I was like, holy shit, TC said it's okay.
Eve then says, well, as long as okay as it's okay with Whitney. Yes, Whitney has a say in this. Right?
Yeah, and then she says something like, as long as it's okay with Whitney, and I don't seem to think that she's going to have a problem with that. So she knows full well that Whitney has been wanting to be with Chad.
Yeah, they know. I don't know how we're going to talk about Simone again here soon, but I guess it's just because they ignore her so much.
Yes.
That they don't realize that Simone's like in love with Chad. It's crazy.
Or maybe they just saw it as a crush or something, but I don't know how you don't see that this girl thinks their boyfriend and girlfriend has been telling the whole town that.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Besides the Russells, I guess.
Yeah. So
Whitney, but
yeah. So Chad's really excited. He's like, all right, let's go into this studio. I got a song we can record. And Eve is like, no music.
I forbid it. She was Mama Coco or whatever from Coco, the grandma.
Yeah.
Mama Imelda.
Yeah.
No music. I forbid it.
I love Coco so much.
I do too.
I can't
really rewatch it too much.
Sob, yeah. If you
I can't.
If you really
I haven't seen
ugly
it.
Cry, Coco, and it's like it's interesting because it's got a lot of great music, and when it came out, I played it for like some of my classes. Like towards the end of the school year, I would like put on a movie, right? And it was so interesting how I would be watching this movie sobbing, and like. And like the kids, they wouldn't even be fazed
unbothered,
by it because so much of like the idea of grief doesn't resonate with them. They don't. It doesn't. A lot of them, not all of them, because a lot of kids do know. Have experienced grief, but most children haven't experienced any like grief or even think about mortality in that way, right? And so when Remember Me starts playing, they just sing along, and I'm just like, oh my God, these are the saddest fucking lyrics.
Yeah. I remember when it won the Oscar, I was rooting for it so bad, and everybody was rooting against me because they wanted This Is Me from The Greatest Showman to win. And I was like, we already have these so many anthems of like, this is who I am, be who you are. It's okay to be you. I feel like I've already done that. And for me, when you win an Oscar for best song, it has to encapsulate the movie. It's about, what is the movie about? When I hear My Heart Will Go On, Titanic, I'd go there. Somewhere Over the Rainbow, Wizard of Oz. When I hear Remember Me, Coco, and it punches me in the gut.
Though I have to travel far, remember me. Each time you hear a sad guitar. God. I have chills just thinking about it. Moving on. Yeah. Oh my God. I'm off on a tangent. We have to get back to passions because I'm going to start crying. Okay.
Remember Eve.
Remember Eve. Though you have to take a drug, remember Eve. Each time you don't remember where you were because she sedated you without your permission.
And with ease.
We don't remember. This is not my best work, but moving on. Yes, let's remember Eve. She says no music ever. And Chad then turns around and is like, what do you got against music, Mrs. Russell? Why don't you want Whitney singing? And she says, I just want her to focus on her tennis. And then Chad says, well, if tennis is, and he's being a little slick here, because he says, if tennis is what Whitney wants, then I'll support her 100%. They leave, the parents leave, Whitney and Chad like happily embrace, but of course Chad is like, I know that he believes that tennis is not what Whitney wants. And he tells her as much as like, I think that's your parents' dream, not yours, same old. We've had this conversation before. Yeah. So later on at the studio.
Well, I was going to say, for some random reason, David is there.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Just in case, he's in this world.
Let me tell you what happened with David, actually. Like, yeah,
because I don't know why he was just there for one line, and it was funny.
The reason David was there is because, and it actually still doesn't make sense. I'm going to explain it. Before Eve and TC ran into Chad and Whitney outside the studio, they were at the book cafe. David also was at the book cafe.
Okay.
And at the book cafe, TC and Chad had all gotten into it at the book cafe as well. Like had an interaction at the book cafe. And while they were having that interaction, David's like whispering in Eve's ear, like, you could stop this, Eve, if you just told the truth. Oh. And so when TC and Eve left the book cafe, he just followed them.
He's got nothing else to do. I mean,
nothing else to do, because he clearly doesn't have a job in this town. Yeah, he doesn't have.
Ivy's on a side mission. She's not going after Sam right now. She needs to make sure Theresa's dead. So David's got some time off. With that said, he tells Eve, like, why do you hate music? Something in your past? And Eve goes, back off, David. I don't pry into your past. Don't pry into mine.
That's exactly and then they left. I didn't even write it in my notes because I forgot it. I didn't even write what David was there.
It was just so random to me that, again, he just popped out and was like, hey, I'm still here.
He got paid for that day of work.
Yeah.
He was in this show. He was in the episode for like 20 seconds.
Yeah.
Good for him. It's a good hustle.
Yeah. With that, we get Chad and Whitney embracing. It's so nice to see them happy together. It's so rare to see them happy together.
Yeah. And it's short-lived. Because
I know.
Because Whitney then starts worrying about Simone, of course.
Yep.
I mean, we do have to deal with the Simone of it all.
Yeah.
And Chad says we need to be honest with her. I want to tell her right as soon as possible. We just need to be straight up with her. Whitney is like, but she'll be hurt for no good reason. It's funny because I happened to be watching these episodes and my niece was watching with me, and she was like, I don't know. It seems like a pretty good reason to me to tell her that, like, yeah. Like, what do you mean she'll be hurt for no good reason? It's like, the good reason is that you will not be continuing to lie to her. Seems like a pretty good reason.
I'm sorry. The minute TC and Eve gave you the green light, you should have ran over. I mean, like, it's all happening. It's all happening. Like, there's no reason y'all can't be together anymore, and you're still... Whitney just doesn't want to be happy.
Whitney just doesn't want to be happy. But also, I will say, too, that Chad has had plenty of time and opportunity to tell Simone. He didn't have to tell Simone, like, hey, I'm with Whitney. But he has had plenty of time to tell her, hey, I'm not actually interested in you. You're great, but we're not together and we're not going to be together.
Yeah.
And then when he and Whitney do inevitably get together, it wouldn't have been as bad. But the fact that now he's going to have to tell her, we're not together. I don't want to be with you. And I'm actually dating your sister and actually been like chasing after your sister for years at this point. That's going to be a devastating blow for Simone. It is.
Yeah.
It is.
No matter how you,
Yeah.
No matter how you say it.
No matter how you say it, no matter how you slice it, it's going to be a devastating blow for Simone. And I do believe Chad has some guilt in this, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because at first it was like Whitney was telling him, no, you can't tell her. No, you can't tell her. But then they kind of like separated and weren't seeing each other for a while. In that space of time, he could have been honest with Simone about what their actual relationship was, but he wasn't.
Yeah.
And so here we are. Anyway, Whitney doesn't want to hurt her sister. She says we'll just be hurting her for no good reason. And then Chad's like, you're only saying this because of that promise you made when Simone got hit by that car.
Yeah. And that's what it is.
It was crazy because when he brought it up, I had forgotten Simone got hit by that car. I was like, oh yeah, Simone got hit and Whitney made that promise. I forgot all about it. I'm so glad they brought it up. I'm glad Passions remembered it. Because you know how all males just forget about something, you know? And so Chad tries to convince her to give up on that because it's nonsense. He's like, God wouldn't want you to keep that like that wouldn't hold you to that promise, and neither was Simone. Like it, you know. Is silly basically, and he says some really nice flowery words, something about to have and hold, like wedding type vows, like he was saying to her, and it brought her to tears, and she finally tells him, yes, Chad, I do these words, I do love, honor, and cherish you. And she says, but I love my sister too, and I couldn't live with myself if I hurt her. Okay. And so it's like, girl, then break up with him, because she's gonna still be your sister. Your sister's gonna be hurt. Like if you're with him, she's gonna be hurt. Whether you tell her now or later, she's going to be hurt.
You could pick Chad or Simone. You gotta this is too much to be making two people like this. It's just weird. Honestly, it's just weird.
So if you don't want her to get hurt, the only logical thing for you to do is to break up with Chad. Yeah, somebody has to get hurt. Like there's no scenario where nobody gets hurt in this. And so it's like, if you don't want Simone to get hurt, then it's going to have to be you and Chad who are hurt. That's what it is. So Chad's like, yes, we need to tell her the truth because see, you do love me. You just told me. So we have to tell Simone the truth. And then they get the news about Theresa. So that kind of cuts into their conversation. They get the news about Theresa being sentenced to death. They hear it over the radio. And so that's when they head to the courthouse. Meanwhile, Simone is talking to Kay at the Bennett house, like cleaning up after Charity's party, I guess. And she tells, I'm so sorry. Where was I? At the studio.
Well, we're going to dip into magic very soon. That's the other thing, too.
Yeah. Well, Zombie's like in and out all of this. So
she's kind of technically just, there's no magic in her thing. It's just she is up to something.
She's just there.
Yeah. Instigating.
She's instigating. So Simone is talking to Kay. And she talks about how she and Chad are in love and that he's just waiting for her 18th birthday so he can make it official. She also shows her this bracelet that she got for Whitney because Whitney has a big tournament coming up. And she's like, I just want to show her that I'm rooting for her, which is very cute, very sweet of her. Kay tells her, or no, I think Zombie comes up and starts to stir up trouble and says, Chad and Whitney are dating. She's like, you know, don't you know that Chad and Whitney are dating? And Simone very pointedly says, Chad is my boyfriend. No, he's not. And Zombie's like, if that's the truth, then why do I see them together all the time? Like, I mean, and of course she's doing the charity thing. So it's like super innocent. Like she's not saying it in a mean way. She's like, oh, I thought that Chad and Whitney were dating. And I just see them all the time together.
Layers.
And Simone says, which is reasonable. I think this was actually a reasonable thing for her to say. She's like, they're together all the time because of Theresa and Ethan, because of all the things that are going on with Theresa and Ethan. So that's why they're always together, but that it doesn't mean anything. And at one point they go back inside and Simone says like, why does everyone keep thinking that Chad and Whitney are a couple? I just thought that line was hilarious.
I wrote,
take the hint.
They wrote Simone like such a dumbass, and it's so frustrating. How does she has an aside to herself and says, why do people think, I wrote that down and I'm like, this is so frustrating for the actors who is more than capable of like giving us an incredible performance. She has done that when they write for her, but like, this is so annoying to have her be so oblivious to these things.
Yeah. Bless her heart. So the girls go inside and they're like, oh, put on our favorite soap opera. And they turn on Passions. We hear the Passions theme song going.
Yeah.
But it gets preempted by Theresa's trial, right?
Yeah.
And they say like, oh, I hate when they interrupt my soaps for the news. And I was like, yeah. It's like, yeah, same girl. And so they see what's going on in the courtroom, and they see Whitney and Chad together, with Chad with his arms around Whitney, and Charity's like, Whitney stole your boyfriend, Simone, right from under your nose. But Simone is in denial. She's like, no, Chad's just comforting her because Theresa is her best friend, and this is something horrible that's happening to her best friend. But Simone, of course, she's like upset. She's worried. So she rushes down to the courthouse too to figure out what's going on between Whitney and Chad. And when she gets there, she sees them among like the people or whatever. And she asks what they're doing there together. She's like, I saw the two of you on TV. Mom and Dad are going to be furious if they see you together. And then Chad explains that all of that has been cleared up, and that her parents know and understand that he did not drug Whitney. And Simone reminds him like, see, Chad, I knew you didn't do it. I knew the whole time. I always believed in you 100%. And
I was the only one.
And I was the only one who believed in you 100%. And then she says, that's why you told me you love me, because I believed in you. Girl, that was so long ago. Has he told you he loved you once since then? No, not once. And it has been so long since that happened. It has been, I can't tell you when it happened, but it was so long ago. It was like a different, I think we had a different K when he said that. Maybe not. But it has been a very long time. Yeah. So, and he hasn't said it to you since. I don't know. Get a clue. And I never see y'all together. Get a clue, girl. But again, she thinks he's just waiting till she's 18, so that they can be together. Which, okay, I guess, fine, whatever. Yeah. Whatever. So, sorry. Yeah, she's like, I believed in you, and that's why you told me you love me. He doesn't say anything.
It's just frustrating again.
Yeah, and she gets so excited. She says, now we can start going out once I turn 18. And then Chad's ready to tell her the truth. Yeah. He's like, Simone, let me tell you what's going on here. And I need to talk to you. But Whitney pulls him to the side and tells him, like, not now. And Chad insists. He's like, no, she's got to know now. And so he grabs Simone, takes Simone outside, basically, to tell her. And as he's about to tell her, they get interrupted when Theresa goes into labor. And so we don't see them interacting again until they get to the hospital. Zombie and Kay are also at the courthouse. They also followed her down to the courthouse. Zombie keeps taunting Kay and making her think that Simone's gonna kill Whitney. She's like, Simone is, once she finds out, is so great, she's gonna kill Whitney. And this scares Kay because even though she's not a very good friend, she does consider Simone her best friend. Yeah. And she doesn't want to see her friend get in trouble. Yeah. So, or kill her sister. So they all head over to the hospital together. Yeah. And Simone sees Chad and Whitney embrace each other at the hospital, and she's like, Whitney stole my boyfriend. Yeah. She stole him away from me. Again, Zombie and Kay are watching as all this happens. And Zombie's like, we're about to witness the perfect murder. Yeah. And so then later we see Whitney and Eve have a little conversation about Theresa. And Eve says, I'm so glad I don't have to worry about you, Whitney. I don't have to worry about you making bad decisions when it comes to love because you have such a good head on your shoulders. But I do worry about Simone. Ugh. She's more like Theresa. She says she's like, she wears her heart on her sleeve. And if she ever got her heart broken, it could cause severe psychological damage. I'm going to stop here.
Yes.
Because kids fall in love People fall in love, in and out of love. They get hurt. It's a part of life, right? Like heartbreak is a part of life. If you think that your daughter is so fragile that having her first boyfriend break up with her or having like a first heartbreak as a young girl is going to send her into what she says, psychological damage, like that's heavy. Like, why are you talking about Simone like this?
This is in the period again of like the movie Crush with Alicia Silverstone, Swim Fan. I mean, I think they're trying to make it sound like she's going to go psycho, and it's like everyone goes through their first heartbreak. I mean, like, yeah, it's silly. But it worries Whitney. It's enough to worry Whitney. That was the goal. Yeah.
And Eve goes on to say, like that part worried Whitney, but then Eve says this. Eve goes on to say, Simone is like Theresa. She defines herself by a relationship. Like, bitch, you define yourself by your relationship. You can't even tell your husband the truth.
Exactly.
So where'd she get it from? Eve made me so mad.
Yeah,
she so much shit about her daughter. Then why don't you help your daughter? Why don't you talk to your daughter? Why don't you give her? She talks about Simone having low self-esteem.
That's what I wrote. I wrote down in quotations. You have self-esteem. Simone ain't got shit. Dr. Eve Russell.
That's what she said basically. And she says she's like Theresa. She defines herself by a relationship, and if anything goes wrong, she could be destroyed, just like Theresa. And then she says, Whitney, I want you to look out for your sister and keep her from being hurt from heartache. Why does that fall to Whitney? Shouldn't you be looking out for your daughter? And you have already clocked the fact that she has low self-esteem, that by your own, this is what you're saying. I don't even know if I agree with it.
I don't agree with that. I wouldn't.
You're saying from your view as her mother, you think your daughter has low self-esteem, that she doesn't have a very good head on her shoulders, that she will suffer severe psychological damage over a heartbreak. Maybe you, as the doctor in your home, should be considering doing something for your daughter, like therapy, Yeah. Do something for your daughter. If you're seeing this, if you really see this, why are you laying the onus at Whitney's feet? It doesn't make any sense. But Eve is terrible.
Yeah.
So what are you gonna do with a horrible mom like Eve? So she's terrible. I hated this. And I don't know how she doesn't know that Simone has a crush on Chad.
Yeah.
How do they not know that? Don't they know that?
I would think they have to.
I feel like Simone has made it very clear that she has a crush on Chad and she really likes Chad a lot. And so you would think that, considering what Eve knows about Whitney and Chad being together now.
Because they just gave the blessing. Yeah. So
she would say, we gotta tell Simone. Yeah. She would tell TC, we should have a conversation with Simone about this.
Family meeting.
Yeah. I just, oh God.
Family meeting in the murder shed. Let's just go.
Got a meeting in the murder shed. So there's a meeting in my murder shed. Family, don't be late. Don't be late.
Oh, I'm clipping this.
There's a meeting in the murder shed. A meeting in the murder shed. Anyway, if you don't know, that's meeting in my bedroom. Is that by Jodeci? I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, whatever. Moving on. So Eve has laid this at Theresa's feet. Not Theresa.
She's about to be put to death. Theresa, I know you're about to die, but could you tell Simone that she's not with Chad? Yeah. She's got low self-esteem like you do.
Oh, God. That's so funny.
She wears her heart on her sleeve like you do.
She lays it at Whitney's feet. And so Whitney goes looking for Chad because she knows that, frantically looking for Chad, really, because she knows that Chad's determined to tell Simone the truth. Meanwhile, Kay stops Simone from going to find Chad and Whitney, saying like, what are you gonna do? What's going on? She's worried that Simone's about to murder, because at one point Simone was like looking at scalpels that were just sitting out at this hospital. I don't know. And so anyway,
Slasher Simone.
Exactly. Kay thought that Simone was about to go do some slashing across Whitney's face. And she tries to tell her, convince her, no, Whitney's not even into Chad. I don't know what I was talking about. But Simone, luckily, I'm glad about this. Simone was like too worked up to really listen to Kay at this point anymore. She was like, no, I'm too confused by everything. I need to go and talk to the actual people involved. Yeah. Right. It's like, yeah, you need to go actually talk to them. And so she goes off to find them, saying, if Whitney betrayed me, I'll make her pay. All right. So then Simone does find Chad, and Chad begins to tell her the truth, but then he gets distracted, of course, by Ethan stealing the scrubs. Because he realizes immediately, he sees Ethan doing some dumb shit, and he's like, fuck, let me go make sure this dumbass doesn't go commit a felony. You know, and so he never gets to have the conversation with Simone about what actually happened, or like about their feelings or whatever. And so then that's when Whitney comes in after Chad talks to Ethan. Whitney comes in and pulls the rug out from under Chad, saying like she's changed her mind about telling Simone, and he's like, no, we have to tell her. And she's like, no, I'm very worried that Simone will be seriously hurt, like when she ran out in traffic the last time she saw us together. She's like, the last time she thought that we were together, she threw herself in front of a moving car.
Just so you know.
Yeah, it's like she didn't really throw herself in front of a moving car. She was delirious and ran out in the street and got hit. And I still think Alistair's driver swerved to hit her on purpose. But I don't know. We don't know who did that.
Yeah. I don't think we ever do.
No, the chief of police, Sam Bennett, have not solved that crime yet, but I'm working on it. Actually, my daughter Kay didn't see anything, so case closed. And so now, anyway, he agrees to wait to say anything. He says, maybe now's not the best time anyway, with all hell about to break loose. And I was like, that's Tabitha's line. And so then Simone finds them, and she's like, Chad, you wanted to talk to me. What was it about? Because by this point, she thinks that he has something. He's going to tell her that he is in love with Whitney. But he says, no, I just wanted to thank you again for sticking up with me about the whole Whitney drug situation, the whole drug scandal. And Simone says, that's what girlfriends do. That's what girlfriends do. And Chad just leaves. He just awkwardly leaves. He's just like, okay, well, and he goes.
Yeah. How do you, how do you not say anything?
So then Simone tells Whitney, she's like, I'm so glad that I finally have something that you don't, Whitney, a boyfriend. And then she said,
I don't mean it like it's.
No, it was actually kind of sweet. Like I feel for Simone. I really do, because I get this feeling. I understand what it must feel like.
Second child.
To be in somebody else's shadow, and it's clear that your sister, your sibling is the favorite. Yeah. And everybody likes them. Everybody thinks they're better than you at everything and more beautiful than you. But then finally there's one person who thinks you're better than they are. And yes, Simone is delusional, because Chad has really done nothing to make her believe that. But still, I did feel for her. So she gave this little speech about it, and she says, it's just that you've always been the perfect sister. You always had everything come more easily for you, and I know I shouldn't feel this way, but it really gives me more confidence knowing that a boy fell in love with me first. And then she asks her about like, but I did see you on TV with Chad, and like you were all over him. And Whitney says, no, Chad was just comforting me because of everything that was going on with Theresa. And Whitney says, you know, he's really grateful to you for sticking up for him with mom and dad. And Simone says, yeah, I was the only one who did. Even when you weren't 100% sure, I was. I guess that's why he fell in love with me instead of you. Simone looks like such a fool. My thing is, I would be more upset that they waited so long to tell me once I find out, because I look like a fucking idiot. Now I'm replaying every time I looked at Chad and was like, I'm your girlfriend, Chad. Like, oh my God, I would be devastated. Yeah, I might throw myself out in front of a car. I might
yeah, you've been gaslit. Well, you gaslit yourself and then you got gaslit. So she's like, that's double.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
So that's it for them. You got anything to add?
No. Not for them. Oh, well, I will say, at one point, Simone said something like Kay was being Kay was just being Kay about, like, y'all are not together. Like, she's just been matter of fact. And then Simone does tell Zombie Charity, she's like, hey, you know, I don't think anybody's coming after my person, but I have heard of girls trying to take somebody else's man away from them. So she tries to, like, get at Kay through Charity, but it's not regular Charity.
It was so embarrassing. I was so embarrassed for her. I was like, "Ugh, girl, you don't even know what's going on. You don't even know which way to go."
Zombie Charity's like, cool. Yeah, like, ugh. Like, she doesn't care. She's like, I know that. Yeah. I'm not an idiot. I'm not the real Charity.
Yeah. Ridiculous. All right.
I thought that was funny.
On to Magic. All right. Magic.
I think we can get through this pretty fast. First of all, you know, Ross, God bless him. He just drives me nuts. Apparently he saw something in the episodes prior to this, basically looking like Charity had turned into a demon.
All right, let me bring you up to speed.
Yeah, thank you.
So yes, Reese had climbed up a tree in Tabitha's yard and he could see into the attic. And inside the attic, Zombie Charity was in full like demon form because she was not able to control her transformations in and out of demon form because of the juniper berries or whatever, nightshade berries or whatever the fuck were in the bathtub when she was with Miguel earlier in the night.
Okay, got it.
And so she can't control this form. He does see her in that form. He believes that Tabitha was the one that turned her into the demon. He also sees the floating head. So he saw all of that. He wants to go and tell somebody, but he falls out of the tree, bumps his head. He's knocked out. So we don't see him again until the next day. And they stumble across him. And he tells Kay and Miguel, hey, I saw these things in Tabitha's attic. And they burst into Tabitha's house. They, you know, do what those kids do. They make a scene and Reese does what Reese does, right? And so that's where we pick up here.
Got it.
Where he's accusing Tabitha of turning Charity into a demon. Now you can take the risk.
Basically, they're like, Ross needs to lay off the Sci-Fi Channel. They give us a fake out where Miguel sees what he's seeing, but it actually is this lamp that Pilar had when the house burnt down. And he's like, can I buy this from you? Tabitha's like, you can have it for free. Don't worry about it. This just like weird little conversations. They finally come to the conclusion that these berries probably made Ross see all of this shit. And yes, so he is off. They're done. Tabitha's like, I need a martini. For some reason, Zombie Charity starts to want to focus in on Dr. Eve Russell, which I wrote down. Zombie Charity's goals are all over the fucking place. Like she's just, it's just
she has no focus.
Exactly.
They need to give Tabitha back her powers. The boys in the basement need to just give Tabitha back her powers because this Zombie Charity, sure, is she chaotic? Yes, but her plans aren't doing anything. They're not working. Yeah. And the reason she's upset with Eve is because Eve told a little bit of the truth and it absolved Chad, and so that gave space for Chad and Whitney to get together, and now love is blossoming in harmony, but that's like the opposite of what she wants to be happening. So she wants to zero in on Dr. Russell and Dr. Russell's family, which is why she like starts messing with Simone.
Yes, and so when she finally gets her way over there, all of that stuff with Kay and Simone and the Chad conversations are happening. She at one point looks at looks and breaks the fourth wall and says, "By the end of this summer, Harmony will be changed forever," and then winks at the camera. Mm-hmm. So that's where Zombie Charity is off to. Meanwhile, it starts to deviate between Timmy and Tabitha and their stories. So we have, did I manifest this? I brought up Norma a while back, and then boom, here she was. I know she comes back a lot. Did not expect her to come back this quickly after the last time we saw her Baby Jane performance. Yeah. So here she is as Peggy. So Timmy's like, I recognize her, but she looks different. I don't know why. There's something about it, specifically her nose. Timmy has a conversation with Peggy about like smoking's bad for you. He's like, shut up, I don't care. So she is smoking, falls asleep, and her nose catches on fire. So I thought this was funny and a nice callback. Timmy says, it smells like something rubbery is burning. She's like, it kind of smells like when Tabitha used to cook for Timmy, which I thought was cute. Josh Ryan Evans does this incredible exclamation of fire, which I thought was really, really cute. Yeah. He puts out the fire and he just spends the whole week trying to see and recognize, why do I know this person? Do I know this person? This person kind of sounds like Norma. And he's having to deal with all of that. Meanwhile, Tabitha and Timmy, this is also really hard for me, is that Tabitha needs somebody to talk to. Yeah. And we made a head. Yep. We were like, we need something for Tabitha to talk to because it's not Zombie Charity. And it's a floating head. Yep. So she has no one to talk to besides this. But she's talking to the head and she's like, can't you help me? I don't understand. Like, oh, what if I look at this picture of Timmy and like really like hone in on this? The photo catches on fire. Tabitha goes to a two-way mirror. That doesn't work. She goes to the magic scroll. That doesn't work. She goes, is the whole bloody dark side out for lunch? Which was hysterical. She is, she's just kind of like trying to find Timmy, and there's no way that she can figure it out. We find out, yes, that Norma had escaped the psychiatric ward. I guess that happened a couple of episodes ago. Well, she
escaped a while ago.
Okay, got it.
She escaped. It's been a while since she escaped. They just never brought it up again until just now.
Got it. So Norma is back with Timmy. She is hoping to kill him now that they are together. Timmy kind of realizes that it is Norma, and he kind of starts to fantasize about what's going to happen. So they catch us off guard. They superimpose Timmy's head onto like a chicken, which looked so horrible. It was not good. It didn't look good. Kramer's head on a turkey in Seinfeld looked way better than what this is. But she's chopping him up. They show Norma taking father a bath. We find out that Timmy's been daydreaming. So he has no one to talk to. So they create Flo, which is obviously a reference to Alice, a television show in the 70s. Yes, yeah. Oh my God, Polly Holiday, kiss Melvin Sharples, kiss my grits. And she has the same big Texas hair that Flo did in the series. So that's obviously an homage to that character. And they're having a conversation, and Timmy basically recaps everything that happened with Norma. And she's like, wow, that sounds like some Hitchcock movie. She was believing Timmy, and then it just got a little too far-fetched for her.
Talking about Tabitha being a witch and all. Yeah. He tells her the whole story.
Yes.
Timmy doesn't know enough to know not to hold back certain details from people. Yeah. Because he just became a person. So he's like, oh, I can tell you everything. Timmy doesn't need to lie, but he doesn't understand how things work.
Yeah. And so that is all going on. They're having those conversations. Meanwhile, Tabitha is trying to find Timmy, and she doesn't know what to do anymore. The magic isn't working. And this is where we talked about it earlier. I let out the biggest laugh when Tabitha was like, the head was like, what are you gonna do? There's nothing you can do. She goes, there's one thing I think I can do, is she goes, I could convince Chief Bennett to do his job and find Norma.
She says, I can make Chief Bennett do his job for once.
Yeah.
I was cracking up. I have the tie on right now, so obviously I am Sam. So we could talk about what happens. Possibly.
Yeah. A
little reenactment, if you will. So, take it away, Eric.
Oh, are we acting it out?
Let's do it. Improv.
Oh, okay. Oh, Chief Bennett, I've been looking for you.
Tabitha, I don't have time for this.
No, please listen. I have to talk to you about my nephew Timmy. He's missing.
Oh, he's missing. What happened to him?
I can't find him, but I also know that lunatic Norma escaped from the psychiatric ward here in this very hospital.
Are you sure? I'm pretty sure she was still locked up.
No, she's missing, and she has it in for Timmy and myself.
Tabitha, go to the station. That's the best I can do for you. I'm busy right now.
You motherfucker.
And scene, like truly, he dismissed her so much in that scene. And yeah, she was like, I'm gonna make him do his job, but he will not. You can't make Sam Bennett do shit. You can't make him do his job. That's the last thing you're gonna get him to do is his job. It's like, I'm too busy with he was too busy with Theresa's stuff, even though he doesn't have anything to do there, right? Like he doesn't actually have anything to do there, but whatever. But yeah, it was funny. I cracked up. I
laughed. Timmy and Norma are basically, they recognize that they are together basically at the end of all of this, right? They do, because it's forever for him to finally go into the kitchen with Norma. But I think we're pretty much there. Tabitha goes back home and she's like, he said something like they're going to do their best. She says something like, your best isn't good enough. She goes back home. The head is reading Hidden Passions, the paperback version. Passions did never stop selling Hidden Passions. They're like, we can be on the bestseller list until all the way till 2024. Yeah. Because they're like, keep selling that book. But and the scroll finally does show Tabitha where Timmy, shows Tabitha Timmy is with, like, in that Norma bubble. So she does at least know that they are together, and she's freaking out about it, but she doesn't know how to communicate to Timmy to, like, help him.
Yeah, she's watching him through the scroll. Thank you so much for doing that.
It's a labor of love.
I just, my throat hurts. That's the thing. My throat hurts.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Talking. But now it's time to move on to the last and certainly least, Shawise. Y'all, let me just tell you, I don't like Brian. I don't like Diana. I don't like any of these people on this island. They can all go to hell. I am very much over it. Diana is insufferable. I know that Passions is setting up this whole, like, Luis and Antonio are in love with the same woman, but they are not. They simply are not in love with the same woman. Yeah. Sheridan and Diana are two very different bitches.
Yeah.
She just drives me crazy. So we are gonna speed run this.
Oh yeah.
Eric has to go somewhere, and I don't feel so good. So.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you, when 743 showed up and Brian was the first person on screen, I went, "Oh, God bless us. Here we go."
It's just yuck. Where's my womp womp? The whole thing. That's what they are. Okay, so. Brian is thinking about his encounter with Nick. He's like out in like a garage type area. Yeah. And he's like so paranoid that he hears somebody coming. It's like the middle of the day, by the way. Like it's the morning time. It's not like a late night, some prowler prowling around the property. It's the middle of the day. But he's so incredibly paranoid that he attacks Diana. When she comes
Brian
into
almost
the-
kills Diana.
Yeah, he like reaches out and grabs her while she's walking in before he could see her, and like, yeah, I don't know. He put her in like this, basically like a chokehold. He's like, Diana, oh my God. It's like, yeah, man, chill, relax. So then Diana's like, why are you so on edge? And tries to get him to talk about Nick. At first he won't do it. But finally he explains that when he and Nick were working together, he was living the high life, whores every day. He was like, no, that's basically what he said. And they showed,
I wrote something a little bit more vulgar in my notes, but I know what he said.
They show him like at this table, and there's one woman, and he's like kissing her, and then another woman comes over and seductively like grabs him, and he starts to kiss her, and like they just like I said, horse to my left, horse to the left of me, horse to the right of me, and those are not really my words. I just feel like that's how
that's what it was. It was heavily implied. Yeah,
that's just how Passions is kind of framing it, and he says, you know, it was all well and good until I realized where the money was coming from. And I actually started to think about this. This makes me hate him even more. I know that Passions is trying to make us feel like, oh, he's actually a noble guy. But making money ain't easy. Mm-hmm. Making money is not easy. If money is coming to you very easily and you're living like this high life and you don't know exactly where the money's coming from, you can bet your ass, bet your bottom dollar that you are wrapped up in some illegal shit. He knew it wasn't on the up and up. Like he has, I don't think for a second that he has an issue with doing illegal shit to make money. He drew the line at the money coming from at the expense of like old people on their pension plans or whatever, which I agree. I wouldn't do that either. But I also would not be hanging out with Nick and spending all his easy money either, because I know this has to be nefarious. Yeah. Not only that, are you telling me also that you were like living the high life, having a good time, and you never once called your mother? I was under the impression that he was having a really rough go of it this whole time. So he didn't want to. You just never called. You were fine for a couple of years, and you just never called your mom. I just hate him even more. The whole thing just made me hate him even more. It was meant to make me feel like, oh, Brian's a good guy. It only made me feel like he's worse.
No, I did not get that indication whatsoever. I was just like, oh, okay, yeah, you were living this kind of life, and this is what it was. But
yeah. So Diana hears his story, and then she starts to worry because Nick had told her she looked familiar to him. He was like, I know you from somewhere. I don't know where I know you, but I know you from somewhere. And so she starts to think, was I one of Nick's whores? Like she really is like, was I one of the girls that worked for him? And Brian's like, no, you're very different from the kind of girls that used to work for us. And
she wants to like ask him something, and he's like, no, you don't get no. He was awful to, again, Diana throughout these episodes as well.
And he assures her that she's nothing like the girls from his past. And he says, she's like, well, but you said it seems like maybe I came from money, and you said that there was a lot of money, and he recognizes me. He's like, no, you didn't come from this kind of money. You came from honest money. Oh, if only you knew. Yeah. And so at this point, we're going to shift gears a little bit and talk about what's going on with Liz. Liz has a conversation with Nick, and she has this bright idea. I don't know why this woman insists on getting herself wrapped up in Brian's bullshit. I don't get it. But she has this harebrained idea that she's going to basically kick him off the island. She tells him there's a problem with his room, the sewer or something backed up in his room, and she also doesn't have another room for him, and she called all the other hotels on the island and nobody else has rooms either, so he's just gonna have to leave immediately. he clocks immediately that she's
he
Brian.
didn't fall for any of that.
Yeah, he's like, you're doing this because of Brian, and you're doing it because you're in love with him. And then he says, you know, maybe I could be your best friend. Maybe there's something I can do to help you and get Brian to come back to you. And he says, I can take Diana away from the island, and then Brian would be left to pine, waiting for someone to love him.
Yeah, he's pushing all of her buttons.
Yeah, it also, but you know what? That's not something that what he said wasn't in any way desirable. Like, oh, you'll take away the woman he loves and then he'll just have to settle for me. No thanks. Yeah. No thanks. And Liz basically says as much. Nick talks about Diana being like she's a fascinating woman, and you know, she's a fascinating woman because she doesn't know who she is or where she comes from. How often does that someone like that come around?
And that is why you've said
birds of a feather. He likes Diana for the exact same reason Brian likes her.
Yeah.
He likes Diana for the exact same reason Brian likes her.
The baby doll thing you were saying.
Yeah. So again, I will say that Brian is not a good guy. He knew that Nick was not a good guy. He will act like he didn't know, but he knew that Nick was not a good guy. But he drew the line at the pension plan shit. Fair enough. But I don't like the fact that they're trying to make it seem like he's some kind of noble guy who just got caught up and didn't know what was going on. And he knew what was going on.
Or he's reformed. He's still that person. I mean, like, he's still...
Yeah, he's not reformed at all. Yeah. Yeah. And so, but like I said, birds of a feather. These two nefarious men both like Diana because she doesn't know herself and doesn't know where she comes from, and she can be easily manipulated and she can be easily isolated.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all. And they can mold her into whatever they want to mold her into. That is it. That is all. So, anyway, Liz tells him, you know, she would never go for something like that. She tells him to like leave very forcefully, and then he grabs her arm. And I liked this, like how Liz's reaction. She was just like, "Get your hands off of me." I was like, "Yes, girl."
I will say, she is always a great performer in these episodes, and she can play that so well. It's so good.
And I do think it kind of like scared him a little bit. He took his hands off.
Yeah.
Like, you know, oh, okay, all right. There's something to Liz more so. There's some bite to Liz more so than Diana. But anyway. He continues to tell her, you know, he's going to get Diana one way or the other. And then he leaves. Then he finds Brian and Diana talking, right? And he tells them that he's there to collect a gambling debt. And Brian's like, well, I don't owe you any money. He's like, well, it's not from you. It's from her, Diana. So Brian doesn't believe it. And Nick gives him her marker, her signed marker. And Brian says, there's no way Diana could have lost this much money. Meanwhile, Diana's just standing behind him, like holding her neck, looking so guilty. Yeah. Like she's standing there. She looks guilty as sin. And she admits that it is her signature. And she says, but I didn't know it was that much. Okay.
I don't know how she knew how to play poker. I'm sorry. If you know how to play poker,
it was blackjack.
Or blackjack. Okay, sorry. You know how to play blackjack. You know how many. She started off with $10. Am I not right?
She started off with $10.
So how much were each of those chips eventually? Like it.
Yeah. Well, also when you sign a marker, I mean, I don't know much about it, but I believe unless it was like. The marker was like wrote on it like unlimited or something. But I imagine you sign for a certain amount of money. But look, I don't gamble. I lost $50 at a casino one time 15 years ago. I have not been back.
and I miss the casino so much. But I wasn't able to see those episodes. But I'm assuming so. She took out a small loan from. Which again,
here's what happened. Yeah. One of his like cronies.
I remember that.
Convinced her, to go.
To play.
And when she was ready to quit, she was like, I'm out of money. He was like, well, sign this and you can borrow money from the house.
Shady.
And so she just signed it without reading it, nothing. And so, And then I guess
I don't know if casinos
amount on it.
I could be wrong. I'm
it's an illegal casino.
Yeah, I was about to say, because not casinos don't just lend you money. You got to get it out of your own stuff.
Yeah, it was an illegal casino, and it was very shady.
But that said, apparently it's thousands and thousands of dollars because
she was playing blackjack for 20 minutes. How she lose so much money? I don't. But you know what? It was a trap. So she doesn't know. He could say any amount, and because she didn't even ask. She just left. She didn't ask like, how much do I owe? She didn't try to settle up at any time. She didn't try to get like a bill. Nothing. She just left. So she doesn't even know how much she owes. Yeah, and because she's an idiot. I hate this woman. I don't like what they've written for her. This is just nonsensical. So anyway. She says, you know, I did sign the marker, but I didn't know it was for that much. And then Nick says, Nick tells Brian that the reason she was gambling in there in the first place was because she was trying to buy a birthday gift for him. And so then Brian gets upset. He's like, I know that you set Diana up, and you did this just to get even with me. Nick denies this. He tells him, you know, if you think I'm the bad guy, just wait till you meet the guys who I work for, and those are the people she owes money to. Yeah. You're not going to be able to protect her from them. At this point, Diana, because it's been weighing on her so heavily, she's like, Nick, I need to know. When you told me that you recognized me, were you telling me the truth, or were you just messing with me like Brian said? And he's like, no, I actually do remember you. Yeah. It was either in London or Paris. I know you were wearing diamonds and a gown. Yeah. I can't place it, but I definitely know you from like Europe.
Yeah. And she's like, did I work for you? And he's like, no. He's like, nah, I'll be honest. I mean, he's like, I know you can't believe me. Like, you're not gonna, like, you might not listen to what I'm saying to you. He's like, but I'm telling you, you've never worked for me. Yeah. I knew you had money, but I don't know where your money came from.
He tells her she's much classier than any of the girls he used to hire. Yeah. And then he says, you know, I know that you come from money, and if you didn't have amnesia, you would hate the way you're living right now. He said, once you have a taste of money, it's hard to go back to like squalor that you're living in now, basically. And then he says, you know, I can forgive the whole debt if you just go out with me and forget about Brian. She says she's not interested, and he's like, can't blame a man for trying. And so he leaves and is like, make sure I'm leaving like tonight or tomorrow, because now Liz has forced him to leave the island. So now he's like, I have to leave, but I want my money before I leave. Whereas if Liz had not forced him out of his room, they may have had him more time. True. She meddled in when she didn't need to. Yeah. For a man that does not want her.
Oh, wait, and it gets worse.
It gets so much worse. Liz is pathetic. So later on, Brian, Diana, and Liz are like sitting around the table. They're trying to figure out how they can pay off this debt. He considers selling his boat, and Diana's like, no, you can't do that. You love your boat. And he's like, not more than I love you, Diana. Liz, in an attempt to make Brian love her, I guess, says, you know, I have this, the hotel is mortgaged to the hilt, but I think I can squeeze some more money out of the bank. So she's going to add more money to her mortgage loan for Brian to give him. You're going to go into more debt to pay off his debt? And for a man that does not want you and has made it very clear in no uncertain terms that he does not want to be with you and treats you like shit. Pathetic. I can't. No. I simply cannot. And Brian accepts. He's like, great, thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. Great, he's like, I owe you my whole life or something. And she's like, yeah, you already owed me that. There's nothing he can help. And again, poor Diana is like, I will make this up to you at some point. You have nothing.
You have nothing. Nothing. Yeah, she has nothing. You have nothing. So Brian then alludes to there being something else he can do, some other way he can make the money. And this prompts Liz to say, Brian, no, you promised you wouldn't do that. And that's the end. I don't know what it was. I do think I remember what it is, but that's where we end it.
Honestly, I don't know where my brain went. I thought he was, because he was looking at the paper, and I thought he was going to see that Theresa had been sentenced to death, but he was going to see Theresa Lopez-Fitzgerald Crane and be like, oh, there's the money.
There it is. There's the money. There's the money.
But, oh no, my sister. I hope she's okay.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, that's it. You got anything to add to the end of this?
I do. Shout out to Doc. I don't know how much time we have with this character. I don't remember much about him other than I do remember him. But he had he had like 2 or 3 lines, and I'm like, hey, you exist in the world of passion.
Doc and Gwen had the same amount of lines. Yeah. I think Gwen got 2 scenes. I think he got 2 scenes. I think they both got like a line in each. And shout out to Doc. Shout out to Gwen. Shout out. So, all right. With that, Eric, where can the people find you?
I'm at Mr. Eric Vetta on everything.
All right. And you know where to find me. Come join the Patreon. Happy Halloween. I know it's post-Halloween, but I came in my costume, so.
You look fantastic. At one point, I started laughing out to myself because I looked right at you, and your hair was doing something.
I know. It's unruly, but I
Yeah, and so is Luis Lopez-Fitzgerald, and so is Sam Bennett.
Yeah. So, all right, y'all, come join the Patreon if you want to hang out, and that's where you can catch me. And with that. You are my passion for life.